In 1938, President Franklin Roosevelt wrote some very interesting words about the economic situation of his time. And let's try to remember 1938, that's 3 years prior to our entrance into World War II. And the economic situation wasn't good. There was close to 1/3 of Americans out of work who were capable of working. Anyway, he wrote something that is as relevant today as it was then in terms of free enterprise and the private interests that were ruling our country. And this is what he had to say. Unhappy events abroad have retaught us two simple truths about the liberty of a democratic people. The first truth is that the liberty of a democracy is not safe if the people tolerate the growth of private power to a point where it becomes stronger than their democratic state itself. That, in its essence, is fascism. Ownership of government by an individual, by a group, or by any other controlling private power. The second truth is that the liberty of a democracy is not safe if its business system does not provide employment and produce and distribute goods in such a way as to sustain an acceptable standard of living. Both lessons hit home. Among us today, a concentration of private power without equal in history is growing. This concentration is seriously impairing the economic effectiveness of private enterprise as a way of providing employment for labor and capital, and as a way of assuring a more equitable distribution of income and earnings among the people of the nation as a whole. Private enterprise is ceasing to be free enterprise and is becoming a cluster of private collectivisms, masking itself as a system of free enterprise after the American model. It is in fact becoming a concealed cartel system after the European model. Mr. Roosevelt went on to say in part, if private enterprise left to its own devices becomes half regimented and half competitive, half slave and half free, as it is today, it obviously cannot adjust itself to meet the needs and the demands of the country. Again, he went on to say, examination of methods of conducting and controlling private enterprise which keep it from furnishing jobs or income or opportunity for 1/3 of the population is long overdue on the part of those who sincerely want to preserve the system of private enterprise for profit. No people, least of all a democratic people, will be content to go without work or to accept some standard of living which obviously and woefully falls short of their capacity to produce. No people, least of all a people with our traditions of personal liberty, will endure the slow erosion of opportunity for the common man. The oppressive sense of helplessness under the domination of a few, which are overshadowing our whole economic life. The power of a few to menace the economic life of the nation must be diffused among the many or be transferred to the public and its democratically responsible government. If prices are to be managed and administered, if the nation's business is to be allotted by plan and not by competition, that power should not be vested in any private group or cartel, however benevolent its professions profess to be. Those people, in and out of the halls of government, who encourage the growing restrictions of competition, either by active efforts or by passive resistance to sincere attempts to change the trend are shouldering a terrific responsibility. Consciously or unconsciously, they are working for centralized business and financial control. Consciously or unconsciously, they are therefore either working for control of the government itself by business and finance, or the other alternative, a growing concentration of public power in the government to cope with such concentration of private power. No man of good faith will misinterpret these proposals. They derive from the oldest American traditions. Concentration of economic power in the few and the resulting unemployment of labor and capital are inescapable problems for a modern private enterprise democracy. I do not believe that we are so lacking in stability that we will lose faith in our own way of living just because we seek to find out how to make that way of living work more effectively. Franklin Delano Roosevelt. How it looked in 1938. I truly believe if Franklin Roosevelt were alive today and had witnessed the outsourcing and downgrading of American jobs for the profit margin, he would be appalled. And what we're seeing is the private corporations, mega corporations, are looking at the profit margin over the greater good of the people and the country, which made their very existence possible. And this cannot be tolerated. And this will surely lead to big problems, revolutionary problems, war, greed, unlicensed and unrestricted, always leads to war. And again, I say, these remarks he made was 1938, 3 years prior to our entrance into the most vicious war man had ever seen, where 55 million people died and another 100 million people were wounded. This kind of private enterprise, where it holds more power than the government itself, must be reined in.